video covers Stage 2 of the Arts Council website chapter in the Against the Clock Dreamweaver textbook. I have the website opened up in Dreamweaver in split view, and the first thing we're going to do in this stage is to use the extract feature in Dreamweaver, and you need to have an account with the Adobe Creative Cloud in order to use the extract panel. If you are not sure if you have one, you can go to the Help menu in Dreamweaver and go scroll down to see. It should either say Sign In or Sign Out. So I am signed in with my AppState account, username account, and so that's why it says Sign Out. If it says Sign In, you can go ahead and select Sign In, then type in your username and password. If you don't have an Adobe Creative Cloud account, you can just follow along in this tutorial and see if this is something you would want to use later on if you do choose to sign up for an account, which I would recommend if you're going to use any Adobe software. And then also you can just continue on and watch the video because I'll be covering how to add some formatting using various tag selectors. So it would still be helpful for you to continue on with this video. Also, just to note, if you have the free trial of the Adobe Creative Cloud account, this extract feature may not be available to you. So you may be able to sign in, but you may not see the extract menu as an option. I have the index.html page open, and then I'm going to switch to live view. And then go to Window and Extract. And then you'll see the Extract panel come up. And then I want to select the Upload PSD or Photoshop file. And then we'll navigate to that Arts Council folder downloaded from Against the Clock and select the CAC site Photoshop file. And I've got that loaded on here, so I'm going to select that. And then once it loads, you'll see it open up in the extract panel. And you can change the width to make it bigger or smaller at whatever size you want to view it. And I'm just going to move it down here for now. And then I can move it back up and scroll down so I can see the entire page in view. You can move your cursor and just see the different features here with these text formatting, and then the body text, the logo, and then the image behind the logo. Click on the text element in the bottom row where the footer is, and then you'll see a pop-up menu, and I'm going to select Copy Text. Now I'm going to move this down and go back to the document window. And we're going to have to move some of these panels around here. So the text that says Insert Footer here, I'm going to go ahead and highlight that text and delete it. And then choose Edit, Paste. And now I've just pasted that footer text that I copied from the Extract panel. So this is helpful because you can format your styles for a page in a Photoshop file, and then you can copy the CSS as well as the content over to your Dreamweaver page. So that's the advantage of using the Extract panel. You can start off in Photoshop and then copy those styles over to your Dreamweaver page. I'm going to go back to the Extract panel. So in my Extract panel, I'm going to click on Layers to view all the layers on this page. And then select the sketch layer and click on the down arrow, and that's the extract button, to extract that layer. And then you'll see a pop-up menu where you can browse to a folder to select the image. So I'm going to go to my folder, click on the Images folder, click Open, and select the PNG 32 and save the asset. So if I open my Images folder, I will see that sketch PNG image now added to my folder. So I already have that image saved to my Images folder, so that's why it's saying replace. But you can go ahead and save it, and then it'll see it downloaded to your Images folder. And if you don't see it, you can click on the refresh button and to refresh the view. Now I'm going to go up to my nav layer and expand that folder to view all the layers in the nav element. And I want to select the palette fade. I want to extract that and browse to the correct folder, in the images folder. And then I also want to select the PNG32. And then you'll see it says that it downloaded successfully, and you can see it in the images folder in my files panel. Now I want to go to the palette fade layer and extract that. Browse to the folder and select the PNG32 and save, and then I already have that image so you can see the palette fade and then the palette full option. And then I want to close the nav and go to the header folder and select the pencils layer. I click on the extract button, and this time after I browse to the folder, I want to select the JPEG format because I have a lot of colors in this image, and it's a photographic image. And then I'm going to slide the optimize slider to 90 and save. And then I've got my pencils JPEG already here. So go ahead and refresh your view again if you need to, and make sure all of those extracted images show up in your images folder in your root directory. I'm going to move my extract panel and go back to my page here in Dreamweaver and go up to the navigation element and click on Home. And then I want to take a look at the selectors. So if I look on the lower left here, I can see it's in the body tags, in the nav tags, in an unordered list, and then there's a list, and then an A tag. Then the A tag identifies the selected link element, the list tag identifies a list item element, and the unordered list identifies an unordered list element. Of course, the nav identifies that it's an HTML nav element. Everything within the body tags is going to be viewable or visible in your web page. I can go to my CSS Designer panel now and review the elements in this panel. There's the Sources panel where you can add sources such as our CSS style sheet. You can click on the plus button to attach a CSS file or create a new one. I can move this down to see that there's a style sheet already attached. Then there's a media query where I can add media queries. And then our selectors. So if you take a look at our selectors here, if there's no symbol in front of it, that's a tag selector. A period in front of the selector identifies it as a class selector. And then a hashtag or number symbol would identify it as an ID selector. Click the All button in your CSS Designer panel, and then click the Body selector. So it should be the first selector. I'm in the Styles sheet in the CSS Designer panel, and I'm selecting the Body tag selector. An HTML tag selector applies to a specific HTML element that matches the selector's name. Now, a class selector with a period in front of it can be applied to multiple elements on a page, and we'll see that the class selectors can be applied to these different headings and elements in these rectangle boxes. An ID selector can apply to only a single element on the page. So with the body selector highlighted, uncheck the Show Set option. I'm going to move this up. So if this is checked, it only shows you the properties that are attributed to that selector. If you uncheck it, then it allows you to format using all these properties to format that selector. With that unchecked, we're going to go back to the Extract panel and then go to the Styles button, and you can see the Helvetica Neue font. Expand that folder if it's not expanded, and you can see the different sizes for that font. Click the 13 pixel option for the font size, and then with the body selector Selected in the CSS Designer panel, we're going to click the text option under Properties. If you click on the space to the right of the font family property, you can choose a font stack. So a font stack just has a list of fonts where the first font will be used, and if it's not available on the browser, it will go down the list to the next font. And we're going to choose the one with the Helvetica Neue option, so it starts with Gotham and then goes to Helvetica Neue. And then I'm going to move this extract panel down, and you can see that anything with that body tag now has that font family attributed to it. So here we've got this text in the navigation now is set to that font family in the with the body element. Going back to the extract panel, I'm now going to click on this red color, and I'm going to copy this web RGB color, and then go back to my CSS Designer panel. The body selector is still highlighted, and then I'm going to select the background button under Properties. Under the background color, I'm going to click on that and paste in the color I just copied and hit return, and now you can see it applies that color to the background. Now the top half of the page still looks gray because the nav and header elements that are nested inside the body element have their own defined background color. So the CSS Designer panel lists the selectors are in the order that they appear in the CSS file. At this point, you can go ahead and save your Styles CSS sheet by going to File, Save, with the Styles CSS sheet selected. If you go to File, Save All, it selects both the HTML page and the CSS style sheet. I'm going to go back to the source code now, and I'm still in live view, and I'm going to format some backgrounds with the extracted styles. So with the index page still open in live view, I'm going to go back to the extract panel and click on the layers button, and then click on the nav background layer in the nav folder. But with the background color selected in the pop-up menu, we're going to copy the CSS for that background color. Then in the CSS Designer panel, select the nav selector, control right click, and paste the style. And then if I move my extract panel, you can see that background color of white is set to that nav element. Now we're going to do the same thing with the header selector. With the header background selected, we're going to copy the CSS, then go back to the CSS Designer, select the header. I'm going to move the extract panel down, and now I'm going to click on the Insert Art Festival element on the web page. You can look at the tag elements. So here we have the H2 tag, and if I click on Kids Workshop, it's also set to H2 tag. You can also see that this is the H2 tag also has the class category selector, as well as for the adult classes and spring art festival. So this class selector can be attributed to multiple elements on the page. We also have the centered section class selector attributed to these elements. In the layers panel, in the extract panel, we're going to go to the category 1 layer or folder, and then select the category background layer within that folder. Again, we're going to copy the CSS from that pop-up window, and then go back to our CSS Designer panel and look for that category class selector. Now we're going to do a control right click, so we're going to paste that CSS code into that selector, and you can see that everywhere, every element that has that class selector now adopts that CSS code that we just copied and pasted. So that was going to adjust the corners of these box elements, and now you can see they have the rounded corners. and then it also has that box shadow formatted to it for that class selector. Go ahead and you can do a File, Save All to save both your CSS and your HTML files. Now we want to select the body selector in the CSS Designer and go to the background options and click the Browse button to the right of the background image. So we want to select an image for the background here. Go to the Arts Council Images folder and select the Sketch PNG and then click Open. And then we want to further format that image in the background. So we want to select No Background, No Repeat, and then click on the background position. If you click on that percent, we're going to change it from percent to center. Then for the next one, to the right of it, instead of percent, we're going to choose the bottom. So we're going to place that background image in the center and bottom of our page, and it's not going to repeat. Now, for the background size, we're going to choose Contain. And that's going to scale the image to the largest possible size so that the entire image fills the container. Now I'm going to select the logo, and I see I've been working on the RON file without my updated images, so I'm going to go back and update my images and my logo on this file, and then I'll meet you back where we left off. Okay, I think we're back in business now, so I've got my images applied and inserted, and I'm going to select the logo in the middle of the page here, and then I'm going to go to my CSS Designer panel and click on the header selector, and then in the properties section I want to look for the background color property. So here's background and background color. I want to remove this white background color here, so we have the option to disable it or remove it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on remove. So to remove that white, and now I can see the red color behind that white property because we had set the background property in this tag in this area to that red color. So now we've removed the background of the header so that we can see the red background. Now we're still in the header selector, and we're going to select the background size to cover, and then for background repeat we're going to select none. Go ahead and save, and then we're going to go back to our extract panel and then click on the Spring Arts Festival text, and then we'll see the CSS code for that text. Uncheck the font family here since we've already formatted that, and then click the Spring Art Festival text on our web page and click on the current button in CSS Designer so that we can just see the selectors formatted for that element only. We're going to click on the category H2 selector and we're going to paste the style. So going back to that extract panel, I'm going to copy the CSS minus that font family style, and then go back to our class selector, control right click and paste that style. So now we can see that the style from the extract panel should match the style in our Dreamweaver page. Now we want to change the formatting of the footer in the same way. I'm going to deselect that font family, copy the CSS. I'm going to select the footer P, control right click and paste the code so that the text turns to white, just like on the extract panel. And one more thing, I see I'm missing that background image in my header area. So I'm going to go back to the header and the background properties and select under the Browse to Background Image, that pencils image, and open that image to set the background. And now we want to format links with descendant selectors. In the extract panel, click on the adult classes, in the navigation element. Uncheck the font family again and copy the CSS and then go back to the Dreamweaver page, select the adult classes text, and then we're going to switch to design view. Using the CSS designer panel, select the A selector and then choose paste styles. I'm going to go back to live view to see the styles formatted to that navigation text. In the properties panel, uncheck the show set option, then click the text button. Find the text decoration property and click the none button. So we're going to set the text decoration to none. And then click the word more in the category sections. Then we're going to go to the class category PA selector, which is a compound or descendant selector, and it applies only to links using the A tags, and they are also in the paragraph elements. So it has the A tag and the P tag, and it also uses the category class selector tag. So we've got kind of multiple tags within the selector. So we're going to go back to the text property and then go to font size and type in 13 pixels. So I'm going to select pixels and type in 13. Now I'm going to open the font weight and select bold. And I'm going to hit tab. And then go to the color property, select the color picker, and then I'm going to use the eyedropper tool to click on the eyedropper and then click on the background red color to select that color. Hit return to finalize that, and now you can see that color is added to this text property. Now we want to define a background image for the navigation link states. So here's the navigation links. So we want to create a different image or look when the mouse is over the text and when it's off the text. So those are called states. In the CSS Designer panel, we're going to click on the Nav A compound selector. And then in the background property, define the palette fade. So in that background image, we're going to browse to the palette fade. PNG image, select that, and you see that it's repeating to fill that element, so we're going to change that here by selecting background no repeat. And then for background position, we're going to choose the right position and then the center position. Then we're going to select the Nav A hover. So this is the state when the mouse is hovering over the navigation element. And then in the text property, open the color picker, use the eyedropper to change the color to that red color again, and then return to finalize it. So when you mouse over or hover over that text, it turns to the red color. So now in the background properties menu, we're going to define it further by selecting background no repeat, and then set the background position to the right, and then the next one, the Y position, to the center. And then we're going to browse to that palette full image so that in the background we retain the full color image that's not faded. Once you complete all of these steps, you can save your files, and then you can define a site definition using your Files panel. If you go down to Manage Sites, you can export your site. Once you export your site, that's when you save it as an STE site file, and just be sure to save that in your root folder. Once you export your site file, you can delete the site file, and then you can always import it again by selecting the SDE file. Just keep in mind that you still want to retain all your HTML and linked graphic files in your root folder, and you need to upload all of those files to the web server, or if you're submitting it as a zip file for an assignment, you need to submit that entire zipped folder, including the SDE site file and your images and HTML files. So I'm just going to go out of Dreamweaver and show you in my WIP folder. I've got my council folder, and this is my root folder. It's got my images, my site file, and this should actually be in my images folder, but then I have my HTML file, and you may have more than one. So you can do a control right click to compress that entire folder, and then you would want to submit that entire zip folder for your assignment. If you are going to submit this or upload these files onto your web server, you would also want to submit all of your files, including your images and HTML files, to your web server. And to upload your server after you've defined your site here, then you can go to your Expand Files panel, select whichever files you want to upload to your server, and then you should, after you've connected and defined your server, you should click on the up arrow to upload your file to the server. So again, all the images on the right are your local root folder. The images on the left in this expanded view are going to be uploaded onto your remote server, which would be your ASU server. If you have any questions about that, please let me know, and I'd be happy to meet with you in person or in video. And that concludes Stage 2 of the Arts Council site.